I'm glad to see a few people came back after lunch. I know it was delicious. The sun is out. Now it's time for a little bit of specific use cases. I want to show you 4 use cases how industrial machine data combined with insurance, combined with financial re-engineering is redefining the future of industry, really. And we heard about it a little bit earlier today. In one of the presentations, they talked about how the industrial IoT is beginning to transform business models and will transform insurance. I would argue it's already happening. It's happening. He said it was happening quite fast. I would argue it's already happening and it's accelerating. I think out of our short 5-year history, before we were acquired by Munich Re, I'd say the last 2 years, so 2 years ago, if I look back at the types of industrial companies that we were talking to, I'd say maybe 2% were ready to digitize their machine data. They were thinking about it, they were already on that path, so about 2%. Today, 2 years later, I would say we're at 5%. So we've basically we've more than doubled that amount. So we're on a good trajectory. We still have the 95% of the industrial companies to support. So there's still a lot of opportunity there. So let's get started. I want to show you 4 examples, and I want to focus on what we focus on, which is predictability. So everything we do in order to change businesses is to bring that company, that industrial company, into a predictive state based on their machine data. So keep that in mind. Predictability drives everything. Thank you for the introduction. So we were acquired by Munich Re for $300 million last October. We were founded in 2013. We're about 230 employees worldwide now. We have research facilities and development facilities in Berlin, where we were founded, in Munich, where our data science lives, in Katowice, Poland, where our Gateway Edge software is developed. We have a Chicago office, now about 30 people in the US, and a Mexico office. So we're expanding quite rapidly. What we do effectively is we extract, manage, and analyze machine data. With this machine data, we then derive predictive algorithms, which leads to predictable business outcomes. Our focus is selling business outcomes. We're a software as a service provider. We're a tech company, yes. But it's important that we don't focus on technology. We focus on the business outcome of that particular company. And then we guarantee it. So we take that predictability, and because we're now part of a larger group, an insurance group that deals in risk, we now have the ability with real-time data, not spot inspection data, but real-time data, we're able to transform these companies and guarantee business outcomes. That's important. Our focus are 3 areas around equipment. So for us, equipment comes in 3 flavors. They used to be very clearly separated. They were part of a value chain. They were partners. Now they're in heavy competition. Those are the OEMs, the ones who make the machines. Those are the service companies that service the machines, and the operators of the machines. So all 3 are racing to acquire as much data from those machines as possible, because in some cases the operator says, I'm not going to wait for the robots or the maker of the machines that we use in our production facility. I can't wait, because it's going to be another 3 or 4 years before they give me a smarter solution. So I'm going to do it now. I'm going to digitize my machine data today to leverage that into predictability and increased operational efficiencies. We also have bespoke solutions that we've developed with GE, both for locomotives as well as for lights, city lights. That's in the US primarily, Australia, North America. But I'd say there are 5 challenges that we encounter with industrial companies, which leads to the necessity of predictability. 5 challenges, and you can imagine what number 1 is. All of you in the room, why we're here today, it's financial. Investment in innovation is inherently risky. It's uncertain, and it requires support. It requires someone to help actually leverage that data and provide some kind of a financial stability and de-risking. Most of these industrial companies are not digital inherently, right? So they don't have the digital skills, they have operational skills, they manufacture things. So without those digital skills and understanding, we heard earlier about the problem of HR and hiring the right people. That's a year-long or multi-year-long process to get those teams together. Without digital, it's hard to create a strategy, and it's hard to create business models. And the main question for most of these companies, these industrial companies, these hidden champions, Germany is amazing. Germany is in a unique position around the world. From the companies that I've seen personally around the world, there's no other country like Germany that has the potential to leverage both the artificial intelligence skills that they've developed as well as the high-skilled engineering that they've created and developed over the last 100 or 150 years. Like no other competitive edge in the country, in the world today. But what do we do with all those legacy assets? 99% of most of these industrial companies is legacy. We could actually talk about the Internet of legacy things. That's what we deal in, the Internet of legacy things. So 2 examples, 2 out of 4 examples. So I'm going to talk a little bit about 4 areas, 4 industries: water, elevators, robots, and then diamonds. So let's start with the water. Who do you think is Grohe's worst and most threatening competitor? Hans Grohe? No. It's Google. The reason they came to us is because they were afraid of Google getting more and more into the home, penetrating all aspects of the home, collecting that data. And they said, we make dumb pieces of metal that look beautiful in your bathroom. But that is not a future. The future is owning the water value chain. We know water. So they created this device, which you can buy on the market today. You can go to Amazon, look it up. It's called the Sense and the Guard. And what this does is you stick it in your water main, your main pipe. A plumber comes in and installs it, and it detects small changes in the pressure, which is indicative of a leakage. Even small leakages that most people would never discover. This little device can read these micro changes in water pressure and cuts off the water. We, relayr, take the data and derive the predictive algorithms from this data coming from the device. And we do something interesting, and this is where insurance comes into play. This is what we heard earlier today about the necessity of partnerships, the necessity of building an ecosystem. So what they find very valuable is that Munich Re, our owner, has access to a lot of customers that they reinsure, which are insurance companies, also property insurers. So they're suddenly in a very unique position to be able to provide property insurers this device, which they can sell then to their end customers, the property owners, both residential property as well as industrial and commercial properties. So there's a huge market. So the insurers are coming and buying this device and providing it to their end customers to reduce their premiums. It's opening up an entire new market for the insurance company and for the property insurance industry. There's this little device that you put in your bathroom or this is a second device that you put in your bathroom or your kitchen, and it detects things on the floor, wet on the floor. Let's move on to robots. So interesting, we're not actually dealing with the robot manufacturers as much as we're dealing with the subsystem providers. So there's an opportunity if you own a little bit of data from the entire machine. If you can capture a little bit of critical relevant data from one piece of the machine, in this case, it's the cables. So that's that blue snake that you see wrapped around the robot. That's where these cables are hidden and protected. Now they collect temperature and load data. And what we can do with that is derive new algorithms to help reduce the downtime of these robots. Now, if any of you are from the automotive industry or know about the automotive industry, you know that 1 minute of downtime in the automotive industry, 1 minute costs around $20,000 to $25,000. 1 minute. So that's very critical. So what we're doing is basically with these predictive algorithms and the insurance component, we're able to guarantee uptime of the robots, or in the reverse, guarantee the lack of downtime and the business operational effectiveness. So that's very interesting. Now let's come to predictability specifically. So when you're looking at a specific model, what we call equipment as a service, we heard a little bit about it earlier. the trend is, we see with all the OEMs that we're talking to and others that we haven't started talking to yet who are knocking on our door, is basically how do we transition from a CapEx-based business where we're used to getting a lot of revenue up front. One machine might cost $200,000, might cost $1 million. We work with a company that's making 500-ton fans in coal power. Right? They're 4 stories high and 50 meters in diameter. These are large devices. But how do you take that into an OpEx or an OpEx-based model, a completely service-based model? Well, first of all, you have to connect you as a manufacturer to your end customer. Right now, you're basically disassociated through your partners, your old partners, the ones who helped you, 5 years ago or up until today, which was, we'll distribute for you, we'll do the servicing for you. You guys focus on manufacturing. That's your specialty. Well, these guys are saying, no, we're tired of that. That's where the value is. We need that data from those machines. We need that data and that direct access to the customers. So that's what's happening. And this is not a new model, by the way. This equipment as a service model. Many of you who from industry might know Rolls-Royce and their model, which was power by the hour, right? Invented in the 60s. So it's ancient. It wasn't really productized until the 90s. But you think about it, they're offering jet engine or airlines, jet engines based on a kilometer or a power by the hour basis since decades. Why could they do it and no one else could? Because the cost of analyzing, collecting, and storing data and CPU power has now come down to such a low level. It's basically commoditized. So the technology costs nothing to actually do this. Now, today, decades later, Rolls-Royce is making 50% of their revenue from services through the power by the hour models. So what happens? Let's talk a little bit about this in more detail. So the old world is you sell something on a CapEx basis. You give it away, basically. You get the little revenue for it. You have no data. And then you try and sell them services on top. A service level agreement. You're constantly going back, trying to upsell them, sell them replacement parts. You have an SLA in place. You're going back and inspecting. That costs money. They pay you money. It's inherently a challenging situation. They call you not because they love your machine. Hey, you got a great machine. Thanks for building this machine. It's not about that. They'll never call you for that. But they will call you when they have a problem. And so this is transitioning this from a negative, inherently negative relationship, not owning any of the data, to a positive relationship, where you don't have to upsell. You include all the replacement parts, all the servicing, all the data visibility in the package that you pay monthly. 3 more minutes. Let's see if we can get through. But it's not only in that area. So think about how many of you, raise your hand, do not own a car. You are the future. You are the future. So I also don't own a car, but I would probably subscribe to Volvo. So you can subscribe to Volvo Care or Porsche Passport. In the US, they just announced this a couple months ago, 80% of the customers using Porsche Passport, it's like $2,000 or $3,000 a month, and you get a Porsche. You get 50 Porsches at your disposal via app. It's not car sharing. You're not sharing your Porsche with your buddy or down the street or some anonymous person. That's your car until you switch it. You can have a 911 for the summer. You can have a Cayenne for vacation with your family, whatever you want. 80% of the customers using this are new. They've never seen them before. It's leveraging this type of a service into a completely new customer base. So it's about value. What are the kinds of value that you can access as an OEM or a service provider? Remember, they're in competition now. Real-time asset performance monitoring, so real-time monitoring, real-time feedback loops from your customers, real-time product optimization, so you can improve your product in real time because you're seeing the data coming off the machines. Switching to an OpEx model, performance guarantees, de-risking of asset and liability, reduce maintenance costs, logistics costs, reduce inventories, right? If you can predict along the supply chain what you're producing, when you're producing it, and communicate that to your supply chain, you don't have to have as much on inventory. And then reduce customer care costs, and finally, moving to a pay-per-unit, outcome-based leasing model. Let's look at elevators quickly. We've got -1 minute, I think. So what are we doing here? This is not actually service based on the elevator. This is service based on a box of sensors that a service provider is putting on any elevator. So think about Schindler, Otis, Thyssen, Kona. Those are the big guys with 2 million elevators each. They've been trying to do this for 5 years. Now along comes a 10 million revenue company out of Hamburg and says, I'm not going to wait for these guys. I'm going to do it myself. I can do it myself. It's cheap. I can build a box of sensors for $500 that reads all the relevant data that I need for disrupting the regulatory inspections that are required 4 or 5 or 12 times a year. And by the way, I save myself 1 trip a year per elevator to repair an elevator. 1 trip per year per elevator. That's about $500 times they service 20,000 elevators. You can do the math. That's a lot of money that they're actually making off of that or saving. And finally, the last one, thank you for the time, the equipment as a service. So this is the diamond case. Who knows anything about artificial diamonds? Yeah, I didn't either. So artificial diamonds is a booming business, mostly driven by China. These guys are based in the UK. They're afraid. They're seeing their market shrinking because the Asians are producing these machines because there's huge demand for these diamonds, these artificial diamonds, particularly in the manufacturing of chips as a protective shield, a heat shield, basically. And they're saying we have to differentiate. We have to go closer to our customers. We have to have customer visibility, predictability for our customers. So they're shifting, and we're helping them do this by helping them, for example, taking off, and this is where Munich Re again comes in with their very large balance sheet, very, very, very large balance sheet. They're able to help take off old assets from customers, repurpose them, refurbish them, and sell them, spin them out into a secondary market. Meanwhile, Coborn says, this is fantastic. I can give my customers a brand new machine as a service that's 50% more efficient, and it's got 100% reliability or your money back. So they're wrapping this up in a Coborn Care package, they call this. Instead of paying $280,000, $300,000 one time, plus all the money up after that for the aftermarket, you're paying $6,000 a month with all the guarantees baked in. Quite impressive, and this is happening across the industry. So what this looks like is moving away from a classic leasing model where you're paying one-time flat fee to an outcome-based leasing model, equipment as a service. You're paying according to the output, not according to a flat fee. You get what you need. You pay for what you get, not anything less and not anything more. And that's it. Finally, maybe to wrap it all up, so we are a service provider of technology, but we're wrapping up with delivery, finance, and insurance. This is the new world we live in. It's not about technology, it's about business outcomes. Thank you very much.